They say the truth always comes out in the end. But what if it only surfaces when it's too late to matter? What if someone spends a lifetime walking with dignity, resisting the pull of fame's poison, only to be truly seen after death drags them into the spotlight? Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't just drown in Costa Rica. That was only the final moment in a long, calculated silencing by an industry that never wanted him to shine unless it could control the light. The official story is simple to simple. A family vacation in paradise. A beach with no lifeguards. A rip current stronger than expected. His little girl was rescued, but Malcolm wasn't. The autopsy ruled it an accident. News outlets wrote their eulogies. Celebrities posted their tributes. But behind every polished headline is a trail of questions no one dares to ask out loud. Why did it take his death for people to acknowledge his greatness? Why was his career muted when his talent screamed for recognition? Why does Hollywood only seem to cherish its black heroes once they're safely buried? Let's be clear, Malcolm didn't fall off. He walked away. He refused to dance for coins. No wigs, no dresses, no emasculating comedy skits, no humiliating himself for cheap laughs. And for that, he paid the price. While others shot to stardom writing stereotypes, Malcolm chose the harder road, integrity. But Hollywood doesn't reward dignity. It buries it quietly, systematically, until only the whispers remain. He was labeled too serious, too black, too grown. Translation? Too dangerous. Because a black man with principles, intelligence, and visibility is Hollywood's biggest threat, and now, in death, he's trending. Streaming platforms digging up his old projects. Networks lining up tributes. Celebs suddenly remembering how inspiring he was. Where were those voices when he was pushing projects about black history and systemic injustice? Where was the Academy when he called out white gatekeepers controlling black narratives? Silent, watching, waiting, until he couldn't speak for himself anymore. And now they get to shape the narrative. They get to decide who Malcolm was. But we remember who he really was because we were watching when they weren't. The truth is, Malcolm was a quiet rebellion. He wasn't loud like some, but every no he said to a degrading role was louder than a scream. Every time he turned down the chance to play the fool on screen, he was standing for something more powerful than fame, self-respect. But in this industry, that makes you a problem. Cat Williams said it best: if you don't play the game plays you. And Malcolm wasn't playing. When The Cosby Show ended, Malcolm had a choice: follow the formula and cash in, or forge his own path. He chose the latter. And because he didn't sell out, Hollywood labeled him irrelevant. They pushed him to the margins. Not because he lost his talent, but because he wouldn't lose his soul. Behind the scenes, he was building, writing, directing, speaking truth through his art, creating a podcast that challenged media narratives about black life. And still, no covers, no late-night interviews, no fanfare. They ignored him because he made it clear he wasn't here to be a puppet. And what does Hollywood do with a puppet that cuts its strings? It buries them in silence until they die. And then they're safe. Then the image can be repackaged, sanitized, and monetized. Let's talk about that beach, that accident. Beaches like that don't get patrolled regularly. Resources had been pulled from that very location due to recent incidents. That day, no lifeguards, but warning signs were everywhere. English, Spanish, symbols, all saying the same thing: danger. And yet, he went in with his daughter. The ocean didn't care who he was. The waves don't read our mess. But even then, even in chaos, he didn't let go. He made sure his daughter was safe. Even in death, he chose to protect. That's the kind of man he was. The kind of man Hollywood has no use for until he's gone. We see this pattern over and over. Talented black artists get boxed in, play the fool, or disappear. Malcolm chose to disappear. And Cat Williams has been screaming this truth for decades. But we laughed, called him crazy, called him bitter. But was he? Or was he just early? Everything he warned us about is happening in real time. He said the system punishes you for saying no, that once you reject the humiliation rituals, the wigs, the dresses, the minstrel masks, they come for your character. Suddenly you're difficult. Suddenly you're unreliable. Suddenly you're not marketable. And then they erase you quietly, efficiently, until the day you die. And then, magically, you're a legend. Look at the headlines. Gone too soon. Hollywood legend, trailblazer, where were those words when he needed a role? When he pitched his documentary about black fatherhood? When he challenged modern rap for poisoning the minds of black youth with misogyny and violence? The silence was deafening. Malcolm once said that fatherhood changed him, that having a daughter made him softer, wiser, more aware. He didn't want her growing up watching her father play a clown on screen. He wanted her to see a man, a real man, one with values, one with a spine. And for that, he paid with obscurity. He had no scandals, no affairs, no public breakdowns. He was the model of what Hollywood claims to love. But because he couldn't be controlled, they pretended he didn't exist. And now they post photos with fake captions and hashtags. Gone too soon, but they were gone long before he was. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's a pattern, a sick, repeating cycle. We've seen it with Dave Chappelle, with Cat Williams, with Monique. Anyone who speaks out becomes problematic. They get ghosted by the machine. But when they die, or if they somehow survive long enough to become undeniable, the machine puts on its mask and pretends it always cared. Malcolm wasn't trying to be a martyr. He just wanted to tell the truth, to live right, to create work that mattered. But in an industry that rewards chaos, his peace was a threat. In a system that thrives on brokenness, his wholeness was offensive. So now, as Hollywood rewrites his story, we need to hold on to the truth. Remember the man who walked away from fame to stay human. The man who turned down millions to keep his pride. The man who raised his daughter with intention, who married once and stayed committed, who didn't let this world change him. Because the most chilling part of this story isn't the rip current. It's the silence before it. The years of ignoring, sidelining, and erasing a man because he didn't fit the mold. That silence was the real death. The drowning just made it official. And now they want to tell his story? No, they already had their chance. Now it's our turn. We tell it raw. We tell it real. We don't let them wash away his legacy with fake tears and Instagram posts. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just a victim of an accident. He was a casualty of a system that fears Black truth, a system that only loves you when you can't speak back. So ask yourself, who's next? Who else are we ignoring because they're not flashy enough, not broken enough, not sellable enough? Who are we waiting to celebrate after it's too late? Because one day, when another real one falls, they'll do this dance again. The tributes, the tweets, the specials. But behind all that noise will be the same silence that took Malcolm. And the only thing louder than that silence will be the question echoing through all of us. Why do we wait until death to hear the truth?